She was handcuffed on the side of the road, cameras filming, officers doubting her identity, until two black SUVs pulled up and everything those cops thought they knew was ripped apart. The sun was still clinging to the edge of the horizon when Officer Ryan Donnelly hit the blinker on his patrol car and pulled behind the black SUV ahead. He'd spotted the vehicle near the intersection of King Street and Broadmoor in Reston, Virginia. Broken taillight. Nothing major. He figured he'd write the driver a warning and keep it moving. That was the plan. He ran his hand over his tired face and stepped out of the cruiser. "Evening," he said, approaching the driver's side window. The tinted glass rolled down halfway. Behind it sat a black woman, maybe late 30s. Slim build, chin-length box braids, dark blue blazer. No music, no movement. Just her. Calm, still. "License and registration, please." She handed over a small leather wallet. No hesitation. "Your name, ma'am?" "Talia Monroe." Ryan flipped open the ID and paused. The card looked official, but not anything he'd seen before. There was a photo of her, a federal seal, and a series of letters he didn't recognize. The badge number looked like it belonged to some kind of federal agency, but nothing popped in his mind. Homeland Security? Secret Service? He'd been on the force 10 years. He'd seen a lot. This one felt off. "This some kind of joke?" he muttered, almost to himself. Talia didn't flinch. "It's legitimate." "What's the agency?" "You don't say anything about CIA or FBI here." "I'm not at liberty to disclose that, officer." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Is this a fake ID? You know it's a felony to hand me fake credentials, right?" Still no shift in her tone. "It's not fake." He walked back to his cruiser and radioed dispatch. "Hey, I need an extra unit. Pulled a woman in a black SUV. ID looks federal, but it's not standard. Get me back up." Less than 5 minutes later, another squad car pulled up behind his. Two officers stepped out. Rookies, probably 2 years in. They stayed back as Ryan approached the driver again. "Ma'am, I need you to step out of the vehicle." Talia exhaled softly, unbuckled her seatbelt, and opened the door. No resistance. As she stood, one of the rookies moved toward her. "I'm going to have to place you in cuffs for now," he said, voice slightly cracking, "until we verify who you are." "You're making a mistake," she said. "You can explain that at the station." People on the sidewalk began to slow down. A couple of them pulled out phones. One woman whispered, "Is she being arrested?" Another man started filming. Talia didn't argue. She simply turned and allowed her wrists to be cuffed. Her blazer shifted slightly, revealing a small earpiece behind her right ear. Subtle, barely visible. Ryan caught it, but didn't say anything. She was calm, too calm, and that bothered him more than if she'd screamed. But Ryan hadn't seen her left wrist yet. The smartwatch she'd tilted at just the right angle seconds before stepping out, whispering something too soft for anyone to hear. Talia stood with her hands behind her back, cuffs cinched just tight enough to leave a mark. The three officers stood in a loose triangle around her. The one on her left looked nervous, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet. The one behind her kept fidgeting with his radio, like he was waiting for instructions. Ryan stayed quiet, watching her like a hawk. "You live around here?" he asked. "I was just passing through," she replied. "Where were you headed?" "Back home." "Where's home?" She looked at him directly. "I think you already know I can't answer that." Ryan stepped closer. "Listen, you might think being vague and mysterious helps your case, but it doesn't. Right now, all I see is a woman with no verifiable ID, refusing to answer basic questions. You have everything you need. You just don't recognize it." That irritated him. It wasn't just her words. It was how she said them, controlled. Like she wasn't even nervous. Most people caught in a lie start sweating, shaking, stammering. She was none of that. She didn't even glance at the phones recording her. One of the bystanders, a teenage girl in a red hoodie, shouted out, "Yo, y'all really cuffing her for a broken light? She didn't do anything. Step back." One of the rookies called out, but the small crowd wasn't moving. 5 people, then 8. A man on a bike pulled over to watch. The camera phones were out and angled. Talia didn't speak, didn't flinch. just stood still. Ryan tapped his radio. Dispatch, any word on that ID match? A pause. Static. Then, still checking. Nothing coming up in the regular database. He stepped away, jaw tight, and called the rookie officer over. Did you pat her down? Not yet. Do it. As the rookie stepped forward, Talia finally said something different. I wouldn't do that. Why's that? She turned slightly toward him, just enough for her voice to carry. Because if you put your hands on me, you might trigger a response you can't walk back from. The rookie froze. Is that a threat? No. It's a statement. That was when they heard it. Screeching tires. 2 black SUVs. No lights, no sirens. Just the sound of rubber against asphalt as they skidded to a stop half a block away. The doors swung open. 4 men in suits stepped out. No hesitation, no discussion. They moved like they'd rehearsed this 100 times. The tallest one flashed a badge. Federal Protective Service. That woman is in our custody. Release her immediately. Ryan stepped forward. I don't know who you think you are, but we haven't confirmed her identity. Until we do, she stays detained. The tall man stepped in closer. You're standing on the edge of a serious federal incident. I suggest you let her go before it becomes something bigger. Another man whispered something into the ear of the rookie behind Talia. Whatever he said made the young officer's shoulders drop like lead. He turned pale. The rookie looked at Ryan, eyes wide, but didn't say a word. Ryan felt the shift. This wasn't a prank. These weren't overzealous agents. These were real. He'd seen that badge before, once, in a training exercise 5 years ago. Rare. Classified. The man who whispered turned to Talia. Are you okay, Agent Monroe? She gave a small nod. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small device. Looked like a phone but thicker. He held it up to her ID. The screen turned green. A sharp beep sounded. Confirmed, he said. Ryan blinked. What agency are you people with? The tall man looked at him for a moment. She works for people who don't carry business cards. But just as one layer peeled back, another began to crack wide open. Because not everyone on that sidewalk had pure intentions. One of them had been waiting for her to slip up. Talia's wrists were still bound, but her expression hadn't changed. Calm. Controlled. The kind of calm that made others uneasy. Not because she wasn't scared, but because she'd clearly been here before. The agent who had scanned her ID gave a quiet nod, and the rookie officer behind her moved first. He stepped forward, hands slightly trembling, and unlocked the cuffs without saying a word. Talia shook out her wrists, flexing her fingers. No drama, no anger, just a quiet moment of return. Ryan stepped back, trying to collect himself. You can't just come in here like this and override a lawful stop. The tall agent, his badge now clearly clipped to his lapel, walked up to him. His voice dropped to a low, steady tone. Officer Donnelly, your stop almost triggered a national security breach. Agent Monroe has spent over a year deep undercover tracking something far above your pay grade. And you just pulled her out of cover on a sidewalk. Ryan didn't respond. He couldn't. His radio buzzed, and for a second, he hoped it would offer an excuse to step away. Dispatch here. Still no hits on that ID. Wait, hold on. Oh, scratch that. We're getting a ping. Secure channel. Stand by. Too late. Talia stepped past the officers, walking straight toward the man who had addressed her as Agent Monroe. The two spoke quietly, barely audible. She seemed to be reporting, debriefing, but casually, like they'd planned for this exact kind of failure. The agent looked over her shoulder at the SUV she had been driving. Did anyone touch the vehicle? Just me, said Ryan. Good, don't touch it again. Another agent circled around and popped the trunk. Inside, nothing visible, but he pulled up the floor panel to reveal a case. Not large, maybe the size of a large book. He opened it. Inside, wires, labels, plastic compartments. Whatever it wasn't for civilian use. Was she transporting? Ryan asked, but didn't finish the sentence. Talia glanced back. That's classified. Everything's classified with you people. She paused.
Because sometimes the people you're supposed to trust turn out to be the ones selling you out. That made Ryan stiffen. Before he could respond, one of the bystanders shouted, "Yo, what is this, man? She CIA or something?" The agents turned to the small group that had now grown into a full sidewalk crowd. Cameras still pointed at them. "Please stop filming," one said firmly. "Why?" asked the girl in the red hoodie. "So you can pretend this didn't happen?" Talia stepped forward. She didn't yell. She didn't make threats. She just looked at the crowd and said, "You have every right to film. Just know, what happened here tonight won't stay on the surface for long. And not everything you see is as simple as it looks." Then, without warning, her expression changed. She turned slightly, scanned the crowd, and her eyes landed on someone near the back. A man. Baseball cap pulled low, hoodie zipped up high. He wasn't holding a phone. He wasn't saying a word. Talia's tone dropped. "Target acquired," she whispered into the smartwatch. The agent spun toward where she was looking. The man realized too late. He turned and ran. One of the agents gave chase. Ryan stepped forward instinctively, confused. "Who the hell was that?" "Someone who wasn't supposed to know I was in town," Talia replied. The crowd suddenly stepped back as the man in the hoodie ducked into an alley. The chasing agent drew something from his coat. A launcher of some kind. He fired once. A pop echoed off the brick. Then silence. Seconds later, the agent returned with the man, cuffed, limping slightly. Blood on his sleeve. His hoodie was partially pulled back, revealing a wire tucked under his shirt. "Tracker, not a mic," the agent confirmed. Talia exhaled sharply. "They were watching for me. The stop wasn't random. They baited me onto this route." Ryan looked at her, stunned. "You saying someone inside fed your route to them?" She didn't answer directly. Just looked at the rookie officer who had cuffed her earlier, then glanced at his belt radio. No words. Just a flicker of doubt. But if her route was leaked, then someone inside that precinct wasn't just incompetent. They were working against her. And Talia wasn't about to let that slide. The precinct building on Ashburn Road was quiet when Talia walked in that night. Not silent, just quieter than it should have been. She'd left the SUVs and federal agents behind. They'd taken the captured man into a separate holding facility. Talia had asked for one thing: time alone at the local precinct. She was in her element now. No cuffs. No suits shadowing her. Just her blazer, her badge, and her resolve. The front desk officer looked up as she entered, slightly startled. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Talia didn't stop walking. She flashed a laminated card, then nodded toward the hallway. "Internal audit. Secure the floor. I'm not here for show." Within 5 minutes, word had spread. Officer Ryan Donnelly sat in the break room, a half-eaten microwave burrito on the table, when a fellow officer walked in and said, "She's here." Ryan stood up. "Who?" "Monroe." He blinked. "What? Here?" Walked in like she owns the place. "Says she's doing an internal audit. Command told us to cooperate." Ryan swallowed hard and left his food. In the hallway, Talia moved like she'd been there before, because, in a way, she had. Not this exact building, but others like it. Small-town departments with cracks wide enough for things to slip through unnoticed, or ignored. She found what she was looking for. The internal server room. It was locked, but not to her. She pulled a key card from her coat pocket and held it to the scanner. Green light. Door clicked. Inside, she moved quickly, plugged in a drive, downloaded logs. She wasn't there to punish. She was there to trace. Back in the main corridor, Ryan caught up to her. "You just walk in here like it's your house now?" he asked. "I don't have time to explain the entire chain of command to you." He stepped in her path. "I deserve to know what's going on." Talia looked at him hard. "You nearly tanked a national security operation. You want me to send you a memo? That's not fair. I was doing my job." "No, you were doing what you thought your job was." "There's a difference." They stared at each other. Then quietly she added, "When I gave you my ID, you assumed I was faking it. Not because the badge didn't scan. Not because of policy. You just didn't think someone like me could carry it." Ryan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Talia turned away. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to find the leak. But before she could take another step, someone else entered the hallway. Deputy Chase Lorne. Late 30s, stocky build, perfectly shaved head, uniform too crisp for someone working swing shift. His eyes landed on her and immediately went cold. Well, well, he said. The ghost walks among us. Ryan looked between them. You two know each other? Talia didn't blink. He worked with me once. Overseas. Brief assignment? Until he disappeared mid-op. Lorne smirked. Disappeared? That's your version? You walked away with a phone full of encrypted contacts and left 3 bodies in a safe house. My version's the only one that made it back. Ryan's jaw tightened. Wait. He was CIA? Not anymore, Talia said. Chase's eyes flicked toward her hand. You still wear the watch. That old trick still work? You'd be surprised how much hasn't changed. He took a step closer. So what now? You gonna play hero in my precinct? I'm not here for show. I came for one reason. She pulled a small device from her coat, a recorder, pressed play. His voice came through, clipped and distorted. She leaves that drop point by 7:10. She always takes the same route. I can guarantee it. Ryan's face fell. Chase didn't move. I tapped the signal this morning, Talia said, voice cold. You've been leaking intel to foreign contacts for months. You fed them my location tonight. Thought you'd finish what you started overseas. Chase laughed. Just once. Then lunged. Ryan moved faster. The 2 men crashed against the wall. Chairs toppled. But Talia didn't panic. She calmly walked up and pulled her badge again. Chase Lorne, you're under arrest for treason, unauthorized foreign collaboration, and obstruction of a federal investigation. He was still trying to swing when 2 more officers rushed in to pin him, but as Chase screamed threats and curses, Talia didn't even flinch. Because this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the next piece falling into place. The holding cell clanged shut behind Chase Lorne with a finality that felt personal. Talia stood on the other side of the bars, her eyes steady, arms folded. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Chase was pacing already, trying to reclaim control with his voice, since everything else was now gone. You think this ends with me? He snarled. You think you've won something? Talia tilted her head slightly. You're not my endgame, Chase. You were just the decoy. He stopped pacing. What's that supposed to mean? She took a slow step forward. The man in the hoodie who followed me tonight? He wasn't waiting by coincidence. He was placed. You fed my route to someone, and they sent him to intercept me. But he didn't recognize me because you gave him an old photo from before I cut my hair. That tells me something important. You don't know who's really pulling the strings. He looked shaken for the first time. You're good at betrayal, Chase, she continued. But you're a small player. You always have been, and you just confirmed that. He barked out a laugh, but it didn't land. You'll never trace it. You think you got the whole thread? You don't even have the needle. She didn't respond. She simply walked away. Outside the cell block, Ryan was waiting. He looked different now. Shoulders slumped, lips pressed in a thin line. He'd heard everything. So he was one of yours, he said. No, he was one of theirs pretending to be one of mine. Ryan nodded slowly, then added, Why didn't the system catch his ID? Shouldn't there have been red flags? Talia sighed. You'd be surprised what a clean badge and a few months of silence can hide. Chase disappeared off our radar just long enough to make everyone think he was dead or buried. Turns out, he'd just changed sides. Ryan rubbed his forehead. So what happens now? We keep going. Back in the evidence room. Talia retrieved the small case from her SUV, the one the agents had found earlier. She opened it again, this time with Ryan watching. Inside were photos, maps, coordinates, surveillance stills. There were also recordings, audio from tapped calls in languages Ryan couldn't identify, and photos of a man that showed up in every single folder. That's who I was tracking tonight, she said, tapping the image. Real name unknown. Goes by Ashir, freelance operative, courier for several hostile entities. Moves weapons, data, people. Why was he here? That's the question. He doesn't spend time in places like Reston unless someone gives him a reason. Ryan studied the photos. You think Chase brought him in? No. Chase doesn't have the authority or the brainpower to make that kind of move. But someone used Chase to steer me into that arrest, hoping I'd be flagged. Maybe even pulled off assignment. He stepped back. And what if the arrest had gone wrong? She looked him dead in the eye. Then you'd be at the center of an international crisis. And I'd probably be dead. The words hung in the air between them. Finally, Ryan said, "What do you need from me?" Talia raised an eyebrow. "That's a shift?" "I didn't know," he said. "About Chase. About you. I made assumptions." She studied his face. "You sure you're ready for what helping me actually looks like?" "Try me." Talia nodded once. "Then let's start with surveillance footage. If Ashir was nearby, there's a good chance he's been captured on traffic cams. Get me access." Ryan left the room without another word. Talia stayed behind and tapped on her smartwatch again. A voice crackled through the earpiece. It was the agent who had chased the man in the hoodie. "We pulled his phone," the voice said. "Encrypted messages, photos of your SUV taken an hour before the stop. Someone was tracking you long before tonight." Her jaw clenched. "Understood. Keep digging." She hung up, closed the case, and locked it again. But she already knew the truth. If someone had eyes on her before she hit that intersection, the operation wasn't just compromised, it was bleeding from the inside. An hour later, Talia sat alone in the precinct's evidence room, the overhead light humming faintly. Her fingers moved quickly across the keys of a government-secured laptop. Surveillance feeds, facial recognition overlays, and time-stamped GPS data blinked across the screen. She didn't need help navigating this part. This was her arena, but what she found made her stomach tighten. Ashir hadn't just been nearby. He'd been parked across from a middle school 4 blocks away. Engine off, windows up. He sat there for 43 minutes, long enough to watch parents pick up their kids, long enough to time police patrols, long enough to plan. She clicked to zoom in on the license plate of the vehicle. It was stolen, not a surprise. But what was surprising was the second man that appeared in the frame 20 minutes in. Blurry, unidentifiable, but walking up to Ashir's window and handing him a small envelope. Ryan stepped in with a flash drive, pulled the rest of the traffic cam footage. "Looks like he circled your arrest point twice before your stop." Talia took the drive without looking up. "You recognize this man?" she asked, tilting the screen toward him. He leaned in. "Hard to tell. Wait. Yeah, that's..." His voice cut off. His jaw moved, but no sound came out. "You know him." He finally nodded. "That's Arthur Vexley. He's a city planner for Fairfax. Has clearance to access traffic systems, public building schematics. He was assigned to a Homeland Security Liaison Committee 2 years ago. Never struck me as dirty." "He's not," Talia said. "He's compromised or being used." Ryan sat down across from her. "So this guy, Ashir, what's his deal?" "He doesn't think like a terrorist. He moves like a courier. Gets paid to carry classified materials across borders and through digital dead zones. No ideology, just contracts. And if he's here, in a city like this, working with a guy like Vexley, that means someone's preparing for a transfer." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "What kind of transfer?" "The kind that doesn't involve cash. Or goods. The kind that involves data, personnel, secrets." She opened another folder on her screen and pulled up a map of several public buildings. A data center, a federal courthouse, a communications hub. All of these are on Vexley's oversight list. All of them experienced power testing delays last week. And all of them use the same internal control contractor, a company called Termax Solutions. Ryan frowned. "That's a federal contractor. We've used them for traffic light sensors." "Exactly. Which means if you compromise one Termax node, you could jump across multiple departments, including law enforcement. Which could explain how Chase knew your route." Talia nodded. "That's the link. It wasn't just Chase feeding information. It was someone inside the city's infrastructure. The arrest was bait. But it was also cover, to distract me while the actual transfer happened elsewhere. She checked the time. And that transfer is happening in the next 2 hours. I guarantee it. Ryan stood. So where do we go? You don't. Not officially. This still falls outside your jurisdiction. But I need access to the city's maintenance tunnels. Vexley has clearance, which means there are likely blind spots that only he knows about. He rubbed the back of his neck. You sure you want to go in alone? Talia gave him a dry look. That's the job. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed. It was the agent from earlier. We've got eyes on Ashir again, he said. He's leaving a hardware warehouse on Noakes Boulevard, carrying something small. He's headed toward the courthouse district. Talia closed the laptop. That's it. That's the transfer. Ryan blocked the door. I'm coming with you. I don't need backup. I'm not backup. I'm a witness. Whatever happens next, I'm not letting this department sit blind anymore. Talia stared at him, then handed him a small pouch. Vest's in there. You'll need it. But even as they prepared to leave, neither of them knew just how deep the tunnel ran, or how close they were to someone willing to destroy lives just to keep one secret buried. It was after midnight when Talia and Ryan stepped into the old maintenance tunnel off Frying Pan Road, one of those overlooked access points carved out during the Cold War, now mostly ignored by city planners. The smell of rust and wet concrete clung to the air. Their boots echoed with every step, a rhythm that tightened the chest more than the silence ever could. Talia moved ahead with the flashlight clipped to her collar. Keep your eyes on the corners, she muttered. Ashir moves quiet. Ryan kept close. He hadn't said much since they left the precinct, but his breathing had changed. He wasn't just nervous. He was trying to match her pace, prove he could handle it. 50 yards in, they hit a junction, and there he was. Ashir. Slim, mid-40s, olive skin, light stubble, leather jacket zipped halfway up. His expression barely shifted when he saw them. He held a slim silver case in his left hand. You're early, he said. Talia didn't blink. You're sloppy. Ashir gave her a half smile. You were always good with words. Better with guns, though. You carrying tonight? Ryan glanced sideways. Talia didn't answer. She didn't have to. I want the case, she said, stepping forward. Ashir raised an eyebrow. You think I came all this way to hand it over? You came all this way to live. Those are two different things. Behind them, faint footsteps echoed from above, a storm grate being closed. Talia turned her head slightly. Did you bring someone? Ashir gave a slow shrug. Just the broker. He doesn't like being seen. Then he shouldn't be in this business. Suddenly, a voice called from behind the wall. You've already lost, Monroe. Ryan turned toward the voice. Another man stepped into view. Arthur Vexley. He looked rougher than his photo. Sweat on his collar, a gun in his hand. I used to admire your work, he said. You stayed invisible longer than anyone else I ever tracked. Talia didn't flinch. And now you're standing in a drainpipe with a stolen gun and a mouthful of excuses. I'm standing in the future. You're trying to protect a machine that's already broken. Ashir shifted slightly, his hand hovering over the case latch. Talia saw it. No, she snapped. You open that case, I end you right here. Ryan raised his sidearm. Vexley laughed. You think this ends in gunfire? No, this ends in silence. With your file buried under 10 layers of red tape. You're leaking personnel movements to foreign networks, Talia replied steady. That case doesn't hold data. It holds access, credentials. If it gets out, 6 agents go dark by sunrise. Ashir's expression changed, slightly. Enough for her to know he hadn't been told the full story. They lied to you, she said to him. You're not carrying money or a trade agreement. You're carrying names. You think they'll let you walk after that? Ashir's jaw clenched. I want the case, she repeated. Or I leaked the video from the alley tonight. Your face, your contact, your car. Vexley tensed. She's bluffing. No, Ashir said quietly. She isn't. In one fluid motion, Ashir turned and slammed the case into Vexley's ribs. The man collapsed with a grunt, gun clattering to the ground. Talia lunged forward, grabbed the case, and kicked the weapon away. Ashir held his hands up. I never agreed to kill anyone. I was told it was clean. Paper only. Talia stared at him. You just chose survival. That doesn't make you innocent. He nodded once. But I'm not your enemy. She didn't answer. Just turned to Ryan. Call it in. Ryan radioed it in with a trembling voice, giving exact location and requesting containment. His eyes kept darting from Ashir to Vexley, who groaned on the floor, trying to sit up. Talia stood still, clutching the case. Then, softly, she said, You want to know the worst part? Ryan looked at her. This wasn't supposed to happen here. This was supposed to be just another pass-through. Quiet. Clean. Now a city's going to burn with questions it isn't ready to answer. But while the city above still slept, 2 secrets had already been cracked open, and neither Talia nor Ryan had any illusions that those doors would close again. By dawn, the courthouse district was under lockdown. Marked cars lined every corner. The press hadn't caught wind yet, but it was only a matter of time. Inside a sealed briefing room at a federal annex building just outside Reston, Talia sat across from 2 officials, one from the Office of Counterintelligence, the other from the Department of Justice. Neither smiled. Both carried folders with her name on them. She wasn't surprised. You broke protocol, one of them said, flipping a page. You compromised a covert assignment, went rogue in a municipal precinct, and coordinated with a civilian officer without formal clearance. Talia leaned forward. I also stopped a classified data transfer, neutralized 2 domestic threats, and recovered an access key that would have exposed our safe assets across 6 countries. Silence. The second official cleared his throat. We've reviewed your footage. The body cams, the security cams, your watch recordings. He looked up. You were right. Talia didn't nod. She already knew. Outside the briefing room, Ryan stood waiting near the vending machines, sipping a stale cup of coffee. He hadn't slept. He probably wouldn't for a while. When she stepped out, he gave a quick half smile. They read you the riot act? They tried. He nodded, then hesitated. So what now? Talia paused. Now they'll sweep it. Frame it as a local miscommunication. They'll bury Chase's record, reassign Vexley's access logs, and mark Asher as detained under undisclosed cooperation. It'll be sanitized by noon. And you? She gave him a look. I'll be sent somewhere else. My face is burned here. Ryan leaned against the wall. I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm sorry. Talia raised an eyebrow. For what? For the stop. For not recognizing the weight you carry. She looked at him for a beat too long. You made a bad call, she said. But you didn't double down on it. That's what counts. He swallowed. You could have gotten killed. But I didn't. And maybe now, neither will someone else. They walked out of the building together, just as the sun cut through the buildings. Orange slicing across the concrete. Across town, social media had exploded. A bystander's video of Talia being handcuffed had gone viral overnight. Over 800,000 views. Heated arguments filled the comments. Some defending the officers, others outraged by the treatment of a federal agent based solely on suspicion. News outlets started calling it the Reston incident. And the questions were starting to pile up. Why hadn't her ID scanned? Why wasn't there a better verification process for undercover personnel? Why did it take backup agents to de-escalate a situation that never should have escalated in the first place? But the real question, the one no one dared to ask aloud, was this. How many Talia Monroes never make it to the part where someone listens? Talia watched the headlines scroll across a TV screen in a nearby shop window. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. Later that afternoon, Chase Lorne was transferred to a secure federal detention facility in Quantico. No bail, no press coverage. Just gone. Arthur Vexley resigned from his city planning post, citing health concerns. His house had already been cleared by the time reporters showed up. No cameras were allowed inside. Asher was taken to a black site in Maryland. He wouldn't appear in any court records, but according to the agent who later met with Talia, he was cooperative, whatever that meant. Ryan returned to his shift 3 days later. He drove slower, watched more, thought longer before speaking. The next time he pulled someone over, he checked the ID 3 times, then looked at the person, not just the credentials. But Talia was already gone by then. Back in the wind, her name cleared, her mission intact, and the world none the wiser. Except maybe one small town that wouldn't forget her face anytime soon. Talia's SUV rolled quietly along the winding back roads outside of Reston. She didn't use GPS, didn't need it. Her directions came coded through channels most people would never know existed. A new assignment waited 3 states over. She had just enough time to breathe before going under again. The trees blurred past her window, but her mind wasn't on the scenery. It was on the question Ryan asked before she left. Does this ever get easier? She hadn't answered at the time. Not because she didn't know, but because the truth didn't feel like something you said out loud in a hallway. Now, hours later, she whispered to herself, "No, but you stop expecting it to." She pulled off at a rest stop to refill her thermos. The clerk inside recognized her from somewhere. He couldn't place it, just gave her a polite nod as he rang up the coffee. Maybe he'd seen the video, maybe not. Either way, she didn't offer more. On her way back to the car, she spotted a news alert flashing on her phone. Reston Police Department announces new federal liaison role following internal oversight incident. Below it was a photo of Ryan. Clean-shaven, straight-faced. A badge clipped to his belt in a new way. Less for show, more for responsibility. She let out a short breath through her nose. It wasn't exactly pride, but something close. Back on the road, she thought about the things no one else ever sees. The close calls, the recordings that never make it to the public, the agents who vanish without farewell. People think the danger is in the foreign names, the aliases, the men in unmarked vans. But more often, it's in the routine moments. A broken taillight, a voice asking for ID, a decision made in 5 seconds that determines whether someone gets to keep breathing. The real threat is always hiding where it looks most normal. She checked her side mirror. No one was following. Still, she turned off the highway a mile early and took a longer route through a residential area. A habit now. Probably always would be. A call came through her earpiece. "Agent Monroe," said the voice. "You cleared for briefing?" "Go ahead." "There's chatter in Nashville. Same network. Might be a test drop this time." "Send the packet," she said. "I'll review it en route." She hung up and turned the volume knob down on the radio. Silence. She liked it that way. At the next light, a little girl crossed the street with her mother. Braids bouncing, backpack swinging. The mother looked tired, but watchful. Talia watched them for a moment, then smiled. Just slightly. There were people out there fighting with signs, with cameras, with court cases. She didn't knock it. But her weapon had always been something else. Silence, precision, and the kind of patience that outlasted the noise. What happened in Reston would never make the full front page. The story would get watered down, misquoted, politicized. But somewhere in that town, a teenager in a red hoodie had filmed the whole thing. And she wasn't taking it down. Not for the cops, not for anyone. And somewhere else, Ryan Donnelly would stop looking for badges that matched only what he'd seen before. He'd start listening first. That was enough for her. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with headlines or parades. It comes with a pause, with someone taking a second longer to think, and maybe that second saves someone's life. She turned onto the highway again. New mission, new city, same risk, and she was ready. So the next time you see someone pulled over, cuffed, or questioned, remember, stories like Talia's don't always come wrapped in uniforms or titles, but they're out there, every day. Unseen, unheard, but fighting to keep things from slipping too far. And maybe, just maybe, asking questions before making judgments is the real beginning of change. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. More real stories, more voices that matter, one story at a time.